What is the beginning of the universe? Maybe nothingness or life? But these should be left to scholars to study, not to ask an ordinary old man like me. An ordinary old man. A long, long time ago, when the universe was still a piece of nothingness. Suddenly one day the whole piece of nothingness was torn apart, and a sphere floated out from the torn place. It exuded God's love and a powerful force that could not be disobeyed. After it floated in the nothingness for a while, a force field suddenly appeared around it, and the sphere slowly turned into a humanoid creature. His eyes overlooked the whole piece of nothingness and murmured, "There is no breath of life here. It seems that I can create a brand new universe." Then he waved his hand. The whole dark nothingness was instantly filled with white, and spheres appeared one by one. He placed the sphere on his palm and gently stroked it. He gently picked up one of his fingers and gently poked the surface of the sphere. Instantly, life was born in the sphere. He showed joy on his face. He looked at this single life, so he decided to enter the sphere to see this life. At this time, the life in the sphere looked around. It was pitch black without any breath of life. It was like a dead cemetery. He began to think about why he appeared here. Suddenly he saw a humanoid creature appear in front of him. He looked at the other person in confusion, and the other person observed him carefully, with a warm look in his eyes. He looked at the humanoid creature in front of him with a gentle curiosity, as if he was looking at his first child. He couldn't help but want to hug him. He felt as gentle as a father. The other party seemed to be very satisfied and nodded, and slowly put his hand on his head and stroked it gently, just like stroking his own child. When the life was stroked on the head, he felt a warm current flowing into his body. At this time, he felt that his power was constantly climbing and becoming stronger. He was like God now. The humanoid creature looked at him and slowly said, "Hello, my creation." The humanoid creature, the tone of the creature, was full of tenderness and hope, and the humanoid creature's hand gently stroked the life form's cheek. "I am about to create a brand new universe here, and you are the first guardian of this universe. I hope you can protect it well. This is the task I give you. If you really encounter an enemy you can't solve in the future, just call me in your heart. I will definitely appear. As long as all the lives in the universe call me, I will definitely appear." The trust in the humanoid creature's tone deeply touched the life form's heart, and the life form nodded heavily and looked at the humanoid creature. The life form looked at the humanoid creature and asked, "Then how should I address you? And what is my name? The life form was full of doubts, as if he wanted to know how to address the other party immediately. "You can call me Father, and I will name you Ersterplatz, which means the first generation of creation." The humanoid creature looked at Ersterplatz, and a trusting smile slowly appeared on his face, and Ersterplatz nodded heavily, and began to shoulder the responsibility of protecting the universe. After hundreds of millions of billions of years, the universe has already given birth to many lives. They all live happily and continue to create miracles. But the original guardian also fell in a battle with a demon from nothingness. But soon other gods replaced the original guardian to protect the universe. Suddenly, there was a sound of a book closing, and an old man's voice came. "Okay, children, today's story conference ends here. It's getting late. Go back and eat." The old man who made the sound was the village chief. He was telling the children in the village about the history books written by their ancestors. "Come on, village chief, please talk for a while." At this time, a child stood up and begged the old man to continue, telling the story in a coquettish tone. He was Taga. He was only 10 years old at this time, a carefree age, but misfortune would soon befall him. "No, children, it's late. Your family will be worried." The village chief touched Taga's head with his hand, then stood up and put the book back on the bookshelf. All the children could only bow their heads and leave the village chief's house in disappointment. But even in disappointment, they still said goodbye to the village chief politely. After they all returned home, the dark night sky was filled with stars twinkling. But this was not a good sign. Instead, it was a disaster. After a night, the roosters in the village crowed, and everyone in the village got up. Everyone in the village was having fun, and in the sky just after dawn, a figure was floating in the sky, holding a person in his hand, and the person in his hand was a god. He was looking at the entire continent, his eyes full of curiosity about the world. At this time, the sky was covered with dark clouds. Thunder and lightning rolled. The dark clouds covered the entire continent. At this time, all the creatures on the continent raised their heads and looked at the sky at the same time, and their eyes were all staring at the figure floating in the sky. The figure threw the body of the god in his hand, and the body fell heavily towards the continent. Suddenly, the whole continent collapsed and split due to the gravity of the body of the god. Falling from a high altitude, the magma buried deep under the continent also burst out instantly, and the magma slowly flowed out from deep underground. The magma continued to engulf everything it passed by at a very fast speed. At this time, all the creatures in the place where the magma passed were swallowed by the magma. They were trying to escape from the magma, but the speed of the magma was ridiculously fast. The magma continued to swallow all the places it went, and all the swallowed creatures kept shouting in pain. Soon the magma reached the village where Taga was. The villagers watched the magma about to swallow their village, but no one wanted to escape, because they knew they could not outrun the magma. But they did not want their offspring to die painfully in the magma, so they had to lead out a few of the fastest horses in their village, and they put the children one by one in the carriage. The children cried loudly and did not want to leave their families and the elders who were very kind to them, including Taga. Taga cried loudly and begged the village chief to follow them, but the village chief was indifferent. He just smiled and said, "Taga, thank you for making me, a lonely old man, no longer lonely. You are my favorite grandson. It turned out that Taga was not the child of any villager in the village, but an abandoned baby picked up by the village chief in a heavy rain. He couldn't bear it, so he took Taga back to the village and raised her carefully. The village chief's eyes were full of tears, but he didn't want to cry and make Taga and other children in the village sad, so he held back. He turned around and ordered a horseman to take all the children away from the village. The faster the better. The horseman looked at all the villagers in the village. He knew that these villagers had entrusted the important tasks to him, so he couldn't let all the residents down. The horseman jumped on the horse and whipped the horse hard. The horse started running in pain. The children in the carriage kept crying loudly. They didn't want to leave the place where they grew up. The villagers in all the villages shed tears as they watched the lava that was about to swallow them. The children watched helplessly as all their loved ones were swallowed by the lava. The horseman kept waving the whip. He wanted the horse to go faster. Even though the horse had reached its limit, he kept waving the whip, but the speed of the magma kept increasing and began to catch up with them. But the horse could no longer run, and the whole carriage flipped over in an instant, and the carriage also flipped over. The children climbed out of the flipped carriage, and they could only watch the magma about to swallow them. They could only hug each other, and they only hoped that if they hugged together, at least it wouldn't hurt. At this time, the magma was in front of them, and when they closed their eyes and prepared to accept death, the imagined burning sensation of the magma did not reach them, and they opened their eyes. They saw a man in a hooded cloak summoning a shield with one hand to block the magma, and hope was rekindled in the children's eyes. This gentleman just raised his hand and suppressed the magma. The magma that swallowed half of the continent instantly returned to the bottom of the continent, and the continent was pieced back to its original appearance. But all the creatures who died under the magma could not be resurrected.